Today's Vision Sunday. Come on, it's exciting. We're talking big things. We're talking future. We got to get charged up this morning. I don't know about you guys, but I know the rain can bring you down a little bit. I'm just going to be honest with you. As an Eagles fan, Super Bowl Sunday kind of sucks this year, doesn't it, guys? I mean, you got the team that cheated last year in the Super Bowl, and then you got the team that embarrassed us in the playoffs this year. So I'm just glad to be worshiping the Lord. I'm going to praise him through the storm that is Super Bowl Sunday. We're just going to go home and have a devotional tonight. We're not even looking at football. We're just going to pray blessings over our oppressors today. Come on. I'm just kidding, man. Seriously, though, we probably will. But, man, I got to say, worship team did a great job this morning, didn't they? I can't tell you guys what a blessing it is to be able to not lead worship sometimes, to be able to just worship with you guys. And we've got just such an incredible team that's leading us now. And, over the last few months, God's really been growing this church. God's really been growing this community as a whole. And we've seen people each week, it feels like, walk through these doors with a call and a gift that want to be used and that want to serve. And you know what we've done? We've given them the chance to serve. We've given them the chance to lead, and we've given them the chance to step into what God would have for them. It wasn't that long ago. Some of you guys were here. Honestly, most of you guys weren't. That's how many people God's brought in. Wasn't long ago. I mean, you guys remember. We were sitting here last summer, and it was me, Vanessa, and Colton. And we were like, God, can we get some more musicians up here? And Greg was traveling. Greg's new role has got him here, and he can lead us in worship some on Sundays. Chris isn't gigging as much. And then we got Paul and we got Trey, and we've just got Christine. We've got a whole team. Mike, my goodness, every time I start talking, I think of another face that's shown up, and God's just blessing us. It wasn't that long ago we were praying for people with a heart for the next generation as Pastor Danielle was moving to Columbia, and we didn't know what was going to happen with our kids ministry. And this morning, I'm honored to say that we have two people that were not here in August when we started praying for help that are leading our kids this morning. Come on, that's good news this morning, isn't it, church? And if you're wondering, those slots are not all full. If you've got a heart for the next generation, we're gonna put you in kids ministry. We're gonna put you in youth ministry. We're gonna put you wherever you want to be. Come on, we need to give God praise that. Come on, when God sees a need, he not only meets it, he exceeds it, right? God saw Cultivate Church last year when we packed our bags, and we moved to Rock Hill. And he said, the story's not finished, but you guys need to get to a point where you realize I'm the only one that can write it. Come on. Spent months spinning my wheels trying to figure out how to get ourselves out of the mess that we seemed to find ourselves in. And it just felt like God was saying, sit down, shut up, and listen, son. Sometimes dad needs to give you that tough love, right? It wasn't that long ago we were praying for God to show us how to reach this city and how to live into our mission of shining the light of Jesus into a dark and hurting world. And today we're sitting here with a vision that God has given us that's branded into our hearts as we prepare to set out on a journey that's far bigger than anything we thought possible. Are you guys excited for this today? Come on, last February, I guess it was now. It's been almost a year since we were told we had 3 days to move out of our building. And we spent almost 2 months figuring out what was next. And then we landed here on Saluda Street, right? I called everyone. I said, hey, we're moving to Rock Hill. They said, oh, cool, where? I said, Saluda Street. They said, well, you know what? I think I'm losing reception here. Sounds like you're telling me you're moving to Saluda. I said, no, that's exactly what's happening. God's got big plans. And then they said, what are they? I said, I don't know yet. I've still got to figure it out. But I'm telling you guys, statistically speaking, we should not be here today. From a realistic standpoint, opposition has been a lot easier to find than opportunity. Come on. But how many of us know that setbacks are just a part of God's way of growing our testimony? We wouldn't have the story that we have today without a little bit of adversity. Come on. We wouldn't have the influence that God is allowing us to have if he first did not refine our hearts and take us to a place of desperation. Can somebody praise the Lord with me this morning? Come on. And we wouldn't have the vision that God is allowing me to share with each one of you guys today if he didn't shift our focus from comfort to calling. So many of us want to be comfortable that we don't realize that the more comfortable we become, the further we tend to wander from what God's called us to. If you're feeling comfortable this morning, I got news for you. I can make you real uncomfortable real quick. We got about 5 areas we need some help in right now. You're not going to be sleeping in like you do on Saturdays. Come on. You're going to hear all about that in just a little while. You're not going to be sleeping in on Sundays. We're going to be serving. We're going to be changing this city one person at a time. You know, as we were winding down the year, we had a lot of people asking me, Pastor, what's the word for 2024? And I told you guys, keep waiting. God hasn't given it to me yet. A couple of you guys, I said, keep waiting. It's a surprise. I'm just going to be honest with you. I didn't have it. God had not given me the word. It's kind of like Moses, you know, when the Israelites were wandering. Moses, what's next? Just wait and see. God, what's next, right? It's exactly what it felt like. And a lot of times I felt myself looking so far beyond the present as I like to plan ahead. As you guys get to know me, you'll know that I like to know the details of whatever it is that I'm doing. I like to know all the secrets. Truthfully, I just really like to be in the know. It's not just fear of missing out, it's fear of not knowing. If I don't know every detail of something, I tend to get a little uncomfortable. And how many of us know God called us into a big season of discomfort? So you guys can imagine the frustration that I must have had as we were winding down the year, getting to the week of Christmas, and I still had not figured out what we're going to share. And I'm trying to plan ahead, and God didn't even seem like he was dropping me a hint. So I'm going to confess to you guys today. Is this a safe place for me to confess a little bit? I started coming up with backup words just in case God didn't deliver. Right? I started Googling. I'm just going to be honest. I Googled, what's a church word for the year? I'm like, man, I've used this one before. Okay? So I'm like, man, I got a backup list of words that I might use for our word of the year. God, I really need you to step up. And I started to think, what does God want? And I just started to plan. And I just sat there with a pen. I'm like, that one doesn't sit right. That one, and I'm like, Google, well, that one kind of works. How can we twist that to shape where God's leading us? And none of it landed, just so we're being clear. I just wanted to be a little transparent with you guys. And then I realized maybe God had been giving me the word for a while, but I had PTSD from last year's word of the year, where God called us to go deeper. And I just said, you know what? I don't like that one, God. Keep going. Give me a backup plan. Refresh. So as I'm praying and I'm waiting, some of you guys might have heard it's looking a lot better these days, but I cut off part of my finger in December of last year. And so there were a lot of nights where I would just lay in bed and try to move my arm in a way that I could get comfortable and I could sleep and the nerve pain wasn't going. And it was maybe 2 or 3 nights after Christmas, I found myself tossing and turning. And just to be honest, I was being a little bit of a baby. Vanessa will tell you guys, I can be a little bit dramatic sometimes. Luke can attest to that. I can be a little dramatic, and I was just throwing a little pity party with God, just asking, why did I have to cut my finger off? Why did I have to have such? And he goes, I don't know. Why did you have to cut your finger off, right? God's looking at me like, well, you answer the question, fool. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting and I'm trying to fall asleep, and I ran out of words to pray, which is not often something that happens with me, but I was speechless. And I just kind of sat there. And I felt the Spirit leading me to open my Bible, and I grabbed it. I had just ordered a brand new Bible for my planning for this year. That's a whole different story. I was excited. I changed translations I read out of. It's a really geeky thing. But I got excited, and I flipped the Bible open to a portion of Scripture that I bet many of us have probably glanced over more times than we've stopped to read. And I landed in 1 Chronicles chapter 4. And I just felt that God was laying what's known as the Prayer of Jabez on my heart. And I read it. Not to sound super spiritual, it's not long. It's 2 verses. It's like 30 words. But I read it. And it's these 2 verses that are sandwiched in the middle of this boring sequence of genealogies. And I read it and it resonated. So I read it again, and I read it again, and I read it again. And finally, I laid the Bible down, and I just asked God, what are you trying to show me with this prayer of Jabez here? Side note, this isn't something that I want to point out to you guys, but this wasn't during business hours, right? It wasn't like I sat down at the office with a cup of coffee and I said, all right, God, let's get to planning, right? This was like 3 o'clock in the morning as I'm trying to get to sleep and Vanessa is snoring like a John Deere next to me, right? It's like I have to sleep with sleep sounds because this lady sounds like a full-on tractor most nights, and I'm trying to read in the middle of a cornfield is what it felt like. And true story. She woke herself up snoring the other day. I love you, baby. That's a whole separate reminder. I want you guys to be mindful today that sometimes when we're asking God for something and we're waiting for that big response, maybe we feel like God's left us on red sometimes. Now, I want to encourage us sometimes in those moments to find some silence and get out of your routine. I waited during my office hours for God to deliver a word for months. And instead it happened at 3 o'clock in the morning, laying next to farm equipment. And God's telling us, get uncomfortable a little bit. I might be uncomfortable sleeping on the couch tonight. I'm just prepping myself. Oh. I want us to get comfortable in these moments because sometimes what we try to rush through, God is trying to deliver us as a breakthrough. Come on. We've got to stop rushing through things and we've got to start waiting. God, what would you have for us today? So I'm reading through this word and I'm asking God what all of it means. And I felt him just telling me this is the word for the church, but not in the sense of a singular word. This is the message for the church. And the story in these 2 verses was what he wanted to set out for Cultivate Church in 2024. Do you guys mind if I read the word real quick? We're going to jump in 1 Chronicles chapter 4. If you guys said you minded, I would have told you I didn't care. But I had to try to be polite, okay? We're going to say, it says, there was a man named Jabez who was more honorable than any of his brothers. His mother called him Jabez because she bore him in pain. Jabez called upon the God of Israel, saying, oh, that you would bless me and expand my territory, that your hand might be with me and that you would keep me from harm so that it might not bring me pain. And God granted what he asked. Now, I'm not sure how many of you guys were around in the early 2000s church, late 90s, early 2000s, when the Prayer of Jabez just like had the church in a chokehold. Greg saw my devotional back there on the table and he said he was getting some flashbacks. He used to work in the Christian book industry. He said, man, this book kept me up at night for years. Just how many people wanted to buy it. The Prayer of Jabez was something that was big, it was popular, and it was something that my mom used to read quite often. So naturally, I didn't think that there was much significance because moms just don't know anything when you're a teenager, right? Mom read it and she was just changed. She went to the Sunday school classes. We had Wednesday night Bible studies. We had all sorts of different studies on this book when I was a kid, but I didn't quite understand why. Anybody ever just wonder, like, what's the hype about some of this stuff? I get people ask me often, what's the hype about church? What's so exciting about Jesus? And I say, just come with us one Sunday and let me show you. Let me show you this person right here who God has changed their life radically. Let me show you this one right here that walked in hopeless and walked out with a renewed sense of purpose, right? God likes to take things that we look over and make them something significant. And this prayer, it's simple. He says, bless me, expand my territory, stay by my side, and keep me out of trouble. Right? We talked through the power of simple prayers as we went through our 21 Days of Prayer series to kick the year off. And honestly, I don't think this one could be much simpler than it is, because on the surface, all of us want to be blessed, right? Can anybody say they're overblessed? Like, God's given me too much, I want to give it back, right? Like, no one has ever received too much blessing. We all want to have a greater level of influence. We all want a bigger piece of the pie. And I can say most of us probably don't want to be alone. Most of us probably want to stay out of trouble, unless you're my son Elijah. He loves being in trouble. That's his favorite place to be, and he got it from me. It's genetics. Like, he lives in trouble because I lived in trouble. But thank God, look at me, the Lord redeemed it, right? Come on. So I asked myself, what's the deal with this prayer? Why did this tiny little 2 verses of scripture make such an impact that we're talking about it thousands of years later? Honestly, I'm wondering, why was this tiny little prayer sandwiched in the middle of genealogy, said by someone who we know nothing else about? Why is it in the Bible? The Bible has all sorts of people that happen in passing, but this particular prayer has stuck with us for a long time. And I've realized that as I've asked these questions more, God's kind of been speaking to me that the power in the prayer is not in the words being spoken, but it's found in the heart of the one who says them. Come on. That means it doesn't matter how pretty your prayers are. It matters that your heart is postured to receive a response when we lift our request. Come on. There's nothing we know about Jabez aside from what we see in these 2 verses. I mean, if you read in context, you can see his bloodline, but there's really nothing exciting about that either. We don't know much about him, but what we do, I think, speaks a lot to his character. And we're going to spend the next 4 weeks going through these middle verses, right? We're going to look at the meat of this text over the next few weeks. But today we're looking at the bun. We're looking at the top, the bottom, the beginning and the end. And it says, there was a man named Jabez who was more, what's that word? Honorable than any of his brothers. His mother called him Jabez because I bore him in pain. Those are important for us. And then he lifts these 4 words, that are said by a man whose name is a constant reminder of the very thing 1 verse over he asks God to keep him from. He's named after pain, but he says, God, don't let me even think about who I truly tend to be in this moment. And it ends with the line, and God granted him what he asked. A birth so painful that his name would never let him forget it. Any mom's ever been in that position, right? My mom tells my birth story all the time. She couldn't get me to come out, and then finally I just said, you know what, I'm out of here. Came out so quick, I don't know what happened. The doctor had a pair of scissors in his hand. Again, it's the 90s. Like, it's a weird time. But I cut my head wide open. There's pictures of me just covered in blood, recovering. I got a big old scar. I blame that on the reason my head's so large. The swelling just never went down. It's cartoonishly large if you really pay attention, so please don't. But Vanessa will point that out now that I've pointed out her snoring. But it's a birth that was so painful, and then it was a response from the maker of heaven and earth. It said that Jabez was not meant to live a life of pain. Rather, he was meant to live a life that would bring healing. Come on. He wasn't created to be someone's burden. He was created to help others lift their burdens. Come on, this is good news right here. What the enemy meant for evil, God means for good. I need you guys to get excited with me this morning. Thank you, Paul. Come on. Jabez prayed, and despite the circumstances from which he came, God responded. Not out of pity, because God's not in the business of pity responses. It wasn't out of obligation. The word says that Jabez was honorable. Another translation says he was upright, he was distinguished, he was righteous. Come on, Jabez might have been named after a curse, but he lived a life of blessing. Come on, he lived a life of honor, and most importantly, he lived a life faithfully honoring the Father, and in doing so, the Father honored him in return. How many of us know when we honor others, they honor us back most of the time? When I show you love, you show me love. When I show you respect, you show me respect. That's the bare minimum. But I got news for you. We're also called to love those who curse us and bless those who speak against us, and that can be difficult. But Jabez being an honorable man means even when you curse me, I'll bless you. Even when you tell lies about me, I will speak blessings over your life because God has created you in his image. And when I curse the image of God, I'm cursing God himself. Come on, that's something for us to think about. Somebody cuts in front of you in traffic, you give them the bird. Come on, you're giving the bird to the Lord right now. What would Jesus do? Jesus would bless you back. Come on. I mean, then again, he might flip some tables, but I'm just, that's a different context, all right? Jabez lived a life of blessing, and God honored it. The more I read it, the more parallels that I saw, the more time that I spent with it, the more I felt God was pushing me further and further into the unknown. So I began to make the prayer of Jabez my prayer. Oh Lord, that you would bless me and expand my territory, that your hand might be with me and that you would keep me from harm so that it might not bring me pain. And I got news for you guys. The more I prayed it, the clearer the word became, not just for me, but the clearer the word for Cultivate in 2024 came. Are you guys ready to hear the word for the year? Are we ready? All right, we're not. We're going to tuck it in. We're going to tuck it in. Cultivate's year word is greater promise. We're speaking greater promise over Cultivate Church. That felt underwhelming. Cultivate is going to be greater promise 2024. And if you're newer to Cultivate, I want to let you guys know exactly what this word means. So I'm going to share a little bit of our story, and I'll keep it brief. We held our first ever service in June 6th of 2021, to be specific, in our first home on Lake Wiley at the Red Fest Shrine Club. And if you were there, it was glorious. Come on, we had the water just overlooking what we were at. We had people coming in by boat. Like it was wild. It was everything you would expect of a church in Lake Wiley. Like people coming in on boat in their loafers, martini, and I'm just kidding. Nobody brought in the drinks with them. We had mimosas out on the porch. And just kidding. That was our communion. No. We had a great service June 6th of 2021, and we had a packed house. And from that point on, we never looked back. You know, we grew out of our first space in less than a year, and then we moved to another one. That's where the real ones came in when we were Dr. Seussing it. We were at the Giving Tree, and we had a big old mural of Dr. Seuss behind us, and then you walk out in the hall, and there was more Cat in the Hat everywhere you look. We grew out of that one very quickly, and then we landed where we thought we were going to be forever. Had a big room, a big building, and we packed it out every single Sunday, and then our worst fears came true. The building was sold. We lost our space, and the longer we searched, the worst things looked. God gave us the word deeper for 2023. And the reason I told you guys I had a little PTSD from deeper is because I thought that meant we were just going to grow deeper in love with the Lord. But God decided he was going to take us deeper down into the depths so that we could reach a place of desperation and he could truly give us something that only he could give us. Come on. So we wandered. Just like the Israelites wandered after they left Egypt and they waited for the promised land. We wandered for almost 2 months. And I know 2 months doesn't seem long for some things, but 2 months for a church to not have a home after having a home, that's a big deal. We finally find a home and we end up relocating the church more than 30 minutes from where we planted our roots. And painful, as Jabez was named after, was the only word that I could think of to cover our situation we found ourselves in. Come on, no longer were we the church that was looking for an outreach opportunity. God dropped us smack dab in the middle of a neighborhood that had far more need than we could possibly resource. No longer were we the comfortable crowd that came and went in convenience, the one who made the journey with us and decided to pretty much hit the reset button. Spent so much time sacrificing to pray and to build and believe that there was something greater than what we were seeing. And how many of us know when we sow in faithfulness, God will bless? Amen. We sowed for months in faithfulness. And as I read this verse over and over, the picture became clearer and clearer. Come on, his name was Jabez because he was born out of pain. And our name was Cultivate. Which sounds cool until you really start to look up what cultivate means. Cultivate means to foster the growth of, but it also means to prepare the land for growth, to loosen and to break up the soil. Come on. To loosen and to break up the ground beneath your feet so that something better can grow in its place. And I don't know about you, but loosening and breaking things up doesn't often feel comfortable, does it? It is very disturbing. It's unsettling literally. Everything around you feels like it's unsure. Everything around you feels shaken, and everything around you feels like you're waiting for that next piece to pop up, but you have no idea when it's coming, where it's coming from, or what it's going to look like. Jabez was born in pain, and I've got news for you guys. Cultivate Church was rebirthed in pain. Come on, God had called us out of comfort, and he had allowed us to reach the depths. Then he started to break up the ground beneath us. And as we prayed in desperation, come on, I remember countless nights of asking God what he was doing in all of it and if he was even here. I'm just going to be honest with you. I was preaching on Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon, going home and weeping, asking God, did I make a mistake? Were we not supposed to move? Should we just have church in the middle of a soccer field every week? Because there were more people in the soccer field than there were here. And I kept asking God, what is this about? Why are we walking through this? And what should we do better next time if you bless us again? I remembered spending months asking that question. And in the moment that God finally started to show me things, I realized God wasn't punishing us or abandoning us. Come on. God was refining us. Come on. To make something perfect means that first you have to take the imperfections away. To make something healthy, first you have to take away the unhealthy pieces. Come on, any gardeners in here? I'm not one, but I know a couple, right? You're not gonna see me near a tree, but I've watched it on YouTube before. Sometimes you gotta cut away the dead limbs in order for the healthy ones to grow in there. And what I've really been fascinated by lately is when they graft in other branches that have grown in other trees, and the grafted in branches grow in a way that tree could have never grown before. And how many of us know God has grafted in some new branches here? If you would have been a part of Cultivate Church this time last year, you would have seen an entirely different church, an entirely different focus. You would have seen an entirely different me, literally and figuratively. I was much fatter. You know, I was 60 pounds heavier, but I think you were pretty good. Thank you, Lou. I was also a different man because I hadn't been broken to that point yet. We were a confident church that had never faced adversity, and we thought God was just blessing us because we were worth it, right? God's just blessing me because I'm better than them other churches. God's given me so much favor right now because I faithfully preach his word in a way that no one else has, right? And we lose a family. We lose a family. We lose a building. Lose another family. Lose a city. Come on. We didn't just lose a building. We lost a whole town. God said, what was that you were saying? Come on. God has grafted branches. He's pruned the ones that were dead, and he's allowed us to plant trees within the tree. And how many of us know when we look up here on this platform right now, it's an entirely different group than you saw a year. It's an entirely different group than you saw 6 months ago. When I look out here, Pastor Gail preached last Sunday. That was great, right? She told me afterwards, she goes, I felt like I was preaching to a church of strangers. She goes, I knew a couple of them, but she said it felt like the people that used to be here were visitors because there's an entirely new church here now. She said, it's the prettiest thing I've ever seen. God is taking and he's giving us beauty from our ashes. And church, I just want you guys to know that God is refining us and he will continue to do so. Just as it says in 1 Peter 1, it says, so be truly glad. There is a wonderful joy ahead, even though you must endure many trials for a little while. I like how it doesn't specify how long a little while is, right? I mean, better is one day than thousands elsewhere. 1,000 days on earth, 1,000 years is like a day for the Lord. So how many of us know a little while could be a really long time? You may have to endure trials for a little while. It says these trials will show that your faith is genuine and it is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold. Though your faith is more precious than mere gold. So when your faith remains strong through many trials, it will bring you much praise and glory and honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed to the whole world. That's encouraging, isn't it? God is purifying us. Come on. God was strengthening us, and he was allowing us to see him in a way that new people could see it, and he wanted them to experience it with us, right? God didn't want Cultivate Church to land here and do business as usual. God wanted a new community to be a part of a new movement. Come on. God's allowing a different group of people to see a fresh revelation because I'm seeing a fresh revelation. We're cultivating new ground. We're breaking it up. We're loosening. We're unsettling. We're disturbing our foundation. And God wanted all of us to have the chance to experience it. Come on, God made it clear that he had not abandoned us. He was not ignoring us, just as he told Israel as they were making their way into the promised land. Be strong and courageous. Don't be terrified or afraid of them. For the Lord your God is the one who will go with you. Come on. He will never leave you or abandon you. And right before our eyes, we were living the word that we had been waiting to hear, and we didn't even know it yet. We were living in greater promise. Come on, as the pressure grew, we grew. As the challenges came, we surrendered them to him, and we trusted that God would pull us through, because how many of us know he's the only one that can? And as we honored God with our faith, we honored him with our praise, even on the bad days. Because despite the pain, we pursued him anyways. And as the seasons started to change, so did our surroundings. The last 4 months, we've been blessed to see more than 50 first-time visitors. Many of those people have made the decision to call Cultivate home, and many of those people are here today. God has blessed us with the chance to see several people make that decision to follow Jesus for the first time, and it's a beautiful thing. And I think especially over these last 5-6 weeks, we've seen countless homes transformed because the power of prayer has not been forgotten. Come on. I don't know if you guys, how many of you were here for our night of worship on January 28th, but we wrapped up our 21 days of prayer, and I received notes, some of them prayer requests, some of them praise reports. And I want to let you guys know that Vanessa and I cried looking through those notes because of what God is doing and what God is going to continue to do through our faithful prayer. Come on, guys, we're not here to put on another church service, because I'm just going to be real. There are plenty of places in town that you can find that at, and I'm sure there are plenty of places you can go to that do it better. I'm just going to be real. Maybe you're here this morning and you're like, this guy's awful. I'm sorry. This is as good as it gets. Not any better unless we bring someone else in. Pastor Gill will preach again soon, I'm sure. There's probably people that sing a little better. Probably people that preach a little better. There's probably churches with more bells and whistles. Although if this is your first time, these are the bells and whistles. How many of us know we dungeoned surrounded by curtains for a long time? We didn't even have lights. We just sit here in the dark. Pretty much. But what God has been showing us is that over these last several months, what he wants this church to be is a church that prays first, honors others, serves faithfully, and does their best to bring him the glory. Come on, I'm not up here because I feel like I've got something more important than someone else to say. I'm up here preaching the words of the most important person who ever walked our earth. Come on. It doesn't matter that pastor has something catchy to say or something tweetable, because quite honestly, I've never tweeted in my life. I don't know what's tweetable. It's not tweeting. What is it, Xing? I've never X'd in my life. That just feels weird. Feels off. I've never X'd in my life. But I want us to understand that we're not just a church to go to. We're a community to belong to. And that's what I think God is calling us to be. We might not have all of the things that all of the places have, but what we do have is a genuine hunger to see people find freedom in this community. All of us have walked through pain, and I know that there are many in here right now that are walking through absolute hell right now. And some of us right now, we're standing here even though it doesn't feel good, and we're praying for heaven to come down and erase the hell we're experiencing and reach us in our depths this morning. Come on. And I got news for you. There might be a million churches in town, but I like to think that we're that one church who genuinely wants to walk with you through it. I make it a point to try to reach out to individuals during the week, not just through our group text, but I try to send personal ones when I can, when I know someone's struggling. We're going to be a church that loves others in a way that blows people out of the water. I might not be Stephen Furtick. This might not be elevation worship, but come on. God's doing something in this place that we won't find somewhere else. He said, oh, that you would bless me indeed and expand my territory, that your hand might be with me and that you would keep me from harm so that I might not bring pain. Come on, church. I don't know about you, but I'm believing that as we step out of the pain and step into our purpose, we will begin to experience a greater promise. Come on, I'm not telling you God's about to drop a fat bucket of money in your lap tonight. But I'm telling you that as we follow him faithfully, we'll see blessings beyond belief begin to take place in our homes, in our jobs, in our relationships. Are we believing that today? Come on, somebody here has been praying for healing in their marriage, and I want you to understand me, breakthrough is coming. Somebody here has been praying for answers in their health, and I want you guys to hear me on this one. Breakthrough is coming. And there are some of you here today that I know are just so worn out. Life is just hitting one thing after another, and you're just trying to catch your breath. I want you guys to understand that breakthrough is coming. Do we receive that today? Greater promise is here. There was a man named Jabez who was more honorable than any of his brothers. His mother called him Jabez because I bore him in pain. And Jabez called upon the Lord. He said, oh, that you would bless me. Expand my territory, that your hand might be with me and that you would keep me from harm so that it might not bring me pain. Come on, with this prayer, we are believing that as we honor others, God sees us. As we pursue blessing and influence and peace and healing, I want us to understand, I'm winding it down here right now. God is going to show us greater promise in 3 key areas. And I want you guys to write this down if you're note takers. And the first part of our greater promise is greater love. Come on, John 15:13 says, no greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Don't worry, I'm not asking you guys to lay down your lives or take the fall for anybody today, but I am telling you that as we continue to pursue honor, laying down comfort and preferences may be necessary for a season to elevate those who we're called to reach. That means we might not sing the songs that we want to sing today. I got news for all of us, and it's a little disappointing. We're probably not going to sing those songs in heaven. We're going to be singing songs we ain't never heard before because the maker of heaven and earth, the creator of words, is going to give us the words to sing. Stepping out of our comfort and our preferences for a season. We've got a big, bold vision for the year, and it starts with sacrifice. It starts with serving others, as Jesus described in Matthew 25 when he said, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So what are we going to do, right? How are we going to love others? We've got some really exciting things, and the first is going to happen 2 weeks from today. We're going to start feeding the hungry, right? We're going to be visiting those the world has kind of set aside, because on February 25th, we have an opportunity for all of you to join us as we serve dinner to the kids at the Rock Hill Children's Attention Home. Those are the kids that have been removed from their homes. Yeah. This isn't temporary foster care. Most of those kids are there until they age out. They don't have families and friends visiting them. They're a burden of the state. We're going to spend time giving them a home-cooked meal and loving on them and showing them that there is more to life than sitting and waiting for something to expire. Come on. We're going to show them that fresh dreams can come from the least expected places. Then on March 7th, I'm really excited about this one. We're kicking off something new that we're going to be doing as a church. And it's a movement that we're calling Feed the Neighborhood. And it literally is what it means. A couple of times a month, we're going to roll out the Blackstones and the crock pots and all the things. And we're going to serve a fresh homemade breakfast free of charge to the community around us. Right here in the church. We're going to cook, we're going to serve, we're going to open the doors, and we're not asking them to come to church with us. We're asking them to let us into their lives for a little bit. Because how many of us know they probably get an invitation to church every week, but how many churches actually want to live life with them? Right? How many churches actually want to see what's happening in their life rather than just filling up their seats on a Sunday morning? Talked to Brenda a couple weeks ago. Brenda's another one of those people that God's brought in, and she's been a part of this community for a long time now. And I said, what's the most effective thing that we can do to reach our neighbors and let them know that we care? And she said, feed them. This is what's known as a food desert. There's no true grocery store within walking distance for most of these people. So during the summer, the kids tend to go a little hungry. Some of the elderly without transportation tend to go without meals. So we're literally going to feed them. I'm sure they're hungry for faith and friends and all that stuff, but most of them are literally hungry. Think of some of the basic necessities that many of us probably take for granted, and eating is one of them. We're going to give them the chance to do so, and we're going to take that a step beyond that, because right before Easter, we're going to open a blessing box right here on the church property. We're going to have a chance for people to bring in food, toiletries, baby products, and as people need things, they're going to come in. They can take it without stopping by and ever having to do it, because how many of us know that's a very humbling thing to do? But our doors will be open too for people to come in and receive prayer, somebody to just come in and talk to you, because how many of us know sometimes you just need somebody to listen, right? I don't need you to pray with me. I really don't even know that I believe, but can you talk to me for a minute? You know? That means a lot to a lot of these people. And I want us to understand this is not us sacrificing or doing anything heroic. You know, we're not the influencers that might record our, hey, you want this food? Can I record you as I give you this breakfast? Does it taste good? Yeah. Doing it for the Lord, guys, right? Like, we're not doing that. This isn't anything heroic or otherworldly. This is literally the call that we've been given to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. If we're eating and I want to love you the way I love me, I'm going to feed you, right? If I want to love you the way that I love me, I'm going to clothe you, right? If I want to love you the way that I love me, I'm going to spend time with you so you know you're not alone. This is the bare minimum. This is just the beginning of what God wants to do. And I want you guys to understand there's much bigger things in store that this is leading towards. Because we're not just showing a greater love, we're showing them a greater hope. That's number 2, a greater hope. Hebrews 10:23, it says, let us hold on to the confession of our hope without wavering, since he who promised is faithful. But how many of us know God is faithful even when we're faithless? It says, and let us consider one another in order to provoke love and good works, not neglecting to gather together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging each other, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Come on, our neighbors are going to have a greater hope because of the things that God is speaking to and doing through us. My mom said it a lot growing up, and I never quite understood it until I got older. You might be the only Jesus that some people see. Some people might not know that he's a man from the Middle East. Some people might recognize Jesus as a beautiful woman in a Cultivate Church hoodie right here. Love you, baby, even though you snore a lot. Some people might recognize Jesus as this wisecracker over here on the front row, because Lou's showing people the love of Jesus. And some people might recognize it in the form of little Wade over here, just turned 5. Showing the love of Jesus when he goes to school. Some people might never hear the gospel, but they will see the gospel through the way we live. I want us to understand that as we consider one another and provoke the good works, it says we're encouraging gathering. And I want to tell you guys, we're in the process right now, and I don't have the details finalized, but we've got a few people right now working on ways to keep these doors open during the week, to provide education support, to resource others, to find the jobs and the food. And we're in the process of trying to finalize some settings where kids and young people can show up in here during the week and just simply be in a safe space, because that's what we need, right? I don't know about you guys, but I didn't grow up in a great home. I needed a safe space. Right? When the doors were open at the church, I was there. And if we can be that for someone else, that's who we're going to be. Because we've been called to shine the light of Jesus into a dark and hurting world. And I got to let you guys know, darkness comes more than one day a week. Darkness doesn't just show up on Sundays. Darkness is everywhere we look until the light illuminates it. We've been called to be that light. So as we're living into greater love and to greater hope, we're all going to have the opportunity to fulfill a greater purpose. Oh, that you would bless me and expand my territory, that you might be with me and keep me from harm so that it might not bring me pain. Come on, we know that our purpose as a church is to shine the light of Jesus into a dark and hurting world. But how many of us know that larger call is just a bigger piece of the puzzle, and each of us have a call to serve on our own? Each of us have a passion that God has given us to change the world. Maybe God has given you a heart for kids. I got to let you guys know we got plenty of opportunity with kids and teenagers. Maybe God's given you a heart for the homeless or the underprivileged. Saturday mornings are just the beginning. We've got plenty of opportunity to help do that. Maybe God's given you the gift of a warm, welcoming smile, and you have the chance to make welcome home more than just a slogan. Come on, we can greet someone at the door and make it feel like they've been a part of this their entire lives. And that's something exciting, because I want us to understand that as we step out with a big, bold vision for the year, we might get a little bit uncomfortable. We might get a little unsettled. Just as we saw coming into this city, unsure of what lie ahead. And just as we see with Jabez, it might get a little bit painful even. But I want us to understand that the pain is not punishment. It's a part of our growth. We're going to have the chance to reach deep into our pockets and invest in this community. We'll have the opportunity to look into our calendars and take moments where we might not want to do anything, and we're going to do something because that's what God's calling us to do. And we're going to have to look at opportunities when we would rather be served and say, God, I want to serve instead. So after service, if you guys want to sign up to serve, Amy's going to be out in the lobby with sheets. There I get to serve cards. You guys can fill out your name, your information, and check the boxes for all the areas you want to serve in. And I promise you, you're going to get a call or a text this week. We're going to put you to work, because it's going to take a lot of work to get things going. Guys, I want you to understand that God has given us an incredible opportunity to lean into our calling of shining the light of Jesus into a dark and hurting world. But I want you guys to know up front, it will not be easy. Changing this city one block at a time will not be quick, and it will not be painless, but I can promise you beyond the shadow of a doubt, it will be worth it. Come on. As we step into greater promise for the year, I want us to understand that we're stepping up when others step out. We're leaning in when others might have the audacity to laugh at some of the things we try doing. I got news for you. If we fail, we're going to try again. If it doesn't land the first time, we're going to try it a second time. And if it doesn't land that way, we're going to find a different approach to the same piece of the puzzle, because we've got a city that needs a church to step up and say, we've had enough of so-so. We want greater promise. I want you guys to know that we're running toward what many others run from. I had a conversation with Tim out in the lobby this morning. Tim's one of our new church members too, and he stays at the Bethel shelters. Said he's never been a part of a church that he's so excited to see on Sunday morning, and that's actually excited to see him on Sundays. I get a text, yeah. I get more texts from Tim than I do my mom, and that's hard to believe for some of you. I get a text from Tim almost every morning telling me he's praying for me, telling me he's praying for the church, praying for this city, and he wants to see what God's going to do through us, and he's excited to be a part of it. And I want you guys to know that's what we're looking to do, not in just this church, but this city. We drive past people every day, and we have no idea what they're experiencing. I can tell you every Tuesday and Thursday night on our way to basketball, we drive past those shelters, and we see men hanging out looking for some semblance of hope. I want us to be that hope this year, guys. Our word for the year is greater promise, and we are living into it one day at a time, and it starts in 2 weeks. I want to see how many of us are eager to sign up and serve for our Feed the Children's Attention Home movement. So if you guys have the Church Center app, I want to let you guys know you can download it. You can look it up. God's got an opportunity for us there. You can sign up to serve at any of our events. They're all live as of 9:30 this morning. I want to see how many people are ready to serve. And I want to ask you guys today, are you ready to shine the light of Jesus with me? The seed has been planted. Who's ready to help cultivate it? Come on, let's pray.